Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Catch, Hook, and Shoot. Today is Sunday, December the 2nd. I want to thank everybody who checked out last week's special episode with me and my friends playing the game Smack Talk Showdown. Hope everybody enjoyed it. I know we had a blast putting it together and recording it. It was a lot of fun. It had a lot more views on YouTube than normal, which is great. A few people checked it out on my new Twitch channel as well, which is awesome. So again, thank you to everybody for checking it out, and for everybody who's been listening to the show every week. Obviously, thank you guys so much. Hope everybody is enjoying it. Hope everybody's sharing it. Let your friends, family, anybody who enjoys wrestling, let them know where they can find it. Of course, that's on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Twitch, pretty much anywhere you find podcasts. And make sure you're following on all the social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. I'm working on some other pretty big episodes. Hopefully, I'll be able to make an announcement on those within the next few weeks. One of them will be coming up in January if everything pans out. So, keeping my fingers crossed for that. If it all comes through, it should be a lot of fun. And but that's a little bit down the line. So let's get into what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling for the last couple of weeks. This past week on Raw caught a lot of backlash from fans. A lot of people did not like the episode of Raw. According to Dave Meltzer and his sources, quote unquote, the entire show was written by Vince McMahon last week, and there was just a lot of backlash, especially about the thing with Drake Maverick with Bobby Roode's robe and things like that. They seem to be keeping this thing going with Maverick and his bladder control issues, so to speak. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that myself, but to each their own. I'm sure there are people out there that find it funny, and it is what it is. I mean, it's basically juvenile humor, which back in my teens, early 20s, I probably would have found it funny as well. Now it's just kind of, why is my question. But, there were some good points with Raw. Alexa Bliss was basically put in charge of the Raw women's division. Still seems to be kind of up in the air as to whether or not she's going to be able to get back in the ring. She's been dealing with some injuries, some concussion issues, I guess, the last several weeks or months. And now there have been reports that she's back training in the Performance Center, so that's definitely a good sign that she may be able to get back in the ring at some point here in the near future. But one report that I read said, she hasn't been able to pass any impact testing as of yet, so that's never a good sign when it comes to concussion issues. So if she is forced to retire from the ring, it would appear they're kind of grooming her to be put in the role of like an on-screen authority figure. So yeah, I guess if that's going to happen, it'll probably be within the next few weeks here. Obviously at TLC, Corbin has a match with Braun Strowman. If Corbin wins, he becomes the permanent Raw GM. If not, that may be the point where we see Alexa made the GM of Raw. We may see Kurt Angle come back. A lot of different scenarios could play out from that. Probably the highest point of Raw this past week was Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental title. These two always put on great matches, and this past Monday was no exception. Some of the other matches were, basically a handicap match with Corbin and Drew McIntyre against Finn Balor. Of course, I'm sure everybody can guess what the outcome of that was. Bobby Lashley versus Elias. You had some more with the Dean Ambrose story. He wasn't at Raw and things like that. I'm not a huge fan of the direction they're going with Ambrose. I mean, I like him as a heel, but the type of heel, I'm gonna wait and see how it plays out. I mean, I kind of liked him as just the hit and run type heel where he doesn't talk too much. But like I said, I'm gonna wait and see how it plays out. For this coming week on Raw, they've announced a women's tag team match with Ronda Rousey and Natalya versus Nia Jax and Tamina. This should be a good match. I mean, Ronda's got a match with Nia at TLC coming up, so this is obviously building towards that. With Natalya teaming with Ronda, and Nia and Tamina seem to be kind of a, I guess you could say, a permanent tag team at this point, and they're still kind of looks like to be building towards women's tag titles with a lot of women's tag matches. Like I said, Tamina and Nia. You've also got Bayley and Sasha Banks are kind of a permanent tag team now, so it seems to be trending in that direction that sometime in the near future we are going to see women's tag team titles. I'll be curious to see if it's going to be just one set of women's tag titles, or if each show, Raw and SmackDown, is going to have their own set of women's tag titles. Yeah, I mean, I've said many times in the past, I think WWE has too many titles as there is. I think there is a need for the women's tag titles, but I think it should just be one set to be defended across both shows. But I have the same feeling about like the world title and the universal title. I think there should just be one top title defended across both shows. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But yeah, again, it's one of those things. You got to wait and see how it plays out. On SmackDown this week, a couple of high points on there. You had Jeff Hardy coming out basically celebrating his 20 years in the business, and had Samoa Joe come out and kind of rain on that parade, talking about Hardy's past issues with substance abuse and things like that. So they're definitely building a rivalry there. Wouldn't be surprised to see this culminate in a match at TLC coming up in the next couple of weeks. The other big spot on SmackDown this week was Women's Battle Royal, for where the winner was to be added to the SmackDown Women's title match at TLC. The winner of that Battle Royal was Asuka, which I was very pleasantly surprised. And so the women's title match at TLC will be Asuka, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair in a TLC match. Yeah, that may be the match I'm looking the most forward to. Don't think it's going to be the main event of the show, although it definitely could be if they put them in that spot. I think it would definitely do well. So we'll have to see how the match card breaks down. For NXT this week, the main event was Keith Lee versus Lars Sullivan. This was a fantastic match between these two big guys. Keith Lee does a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect a man of his size to be able to do. He's kind of a throwback to like a Bam Bam Bigelow. He can throw the moonsaults. He can do the suicide dives, things like that. And yeah, it was just a great match between these two. Also, some other interesting notes from NXT. Looks like there's a feud going to be building up between Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke, and Marina Shafir against Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, and Dakota Kai. So yeah, look for that one to play out over the next few weeks and possibly end up in a 6-woman tag match at some point. I don't know if they'll hold off on that until the next takeover. They could. Would definitely be definitely be a great addition to that to the takeover. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. And we also saw a vignette on NXT for Dominik Dijakovic, formerly known as Donovan Dijak in Ring of Honor. So he apparently is going to be making his TV debut pretty soon. I know I'm looking forward to that. I'm honestly kind of surprised it took this long. He's been with NXT for a little while, been performing on house shows and things like that. So now they're finally going to be bringing him up to TV, which is great. With MLW this week, had a match with Tommy Dreamer and Brian Pillman Jr. This was another great match between kind of the old school guy with Tommy Dreamer, who can still get in there and go pretty well all these years later, against the up-and-comer Brian Pillman Jr. Great match. Dreamer did come out on top. Pillman, attacked him afterwards. Dreamer did the sportsman thing, shook Pillman's hand after the match, things like that, and Pillman just attacked him, beat him with his cane, and so that is setting up for a Singapore cane match between these two at the next big MLW event on December 14th. So that's one I definitely would like to see. And then the other big match on MLW this week was the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Phoenix, against LA Park and LA Park and his son El Hijo del LA Park. I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly. My pronunciation when it comes to Spanish is horrible, but basically LA Park and son, we'll just say that. So yeah, great tag team match. Lucha Brothers managed to retain the tag team titles. And so getting into some of the rumors and things floating around in the world of wrestling, as far as starting off with Braun Strowman here. Of course, I think everybody knows by now he's been taken off of TV after an attack from Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler, where they apparently shattered his elbow, quote unquote. Of course, his elbow is actually injured, although not to the extreme that they portrayed it on television. He's got some bone spurs in his elbow they needed to have removed. It was basically a laparoscopic procedure where, minimally invasive, just to kind of clean it out and give him some better range of motion and alleviate some pain. So it's, whereas a shattered elbow would obviously take months to recover from, this is something that, it's about a 4-week recovery time, so he more than likely will be at the TLC pay-per-view. And it's the same thing like the last time he had a minor injury. They played it up on TV to be much worse, so that when he came back relatively quickly, he kind of gave the that superhuman vibe. So this is along the same lines as that. So he he will be at TLC for his match against Baron Corbin. As I said before, Alexa Bliss apparently has been back training at the Performance Center, so that's definitely a good sign for her that she will probably be able to get back into the ring at some point in the future, which, to me is very good. Alexa Bliss honestly is the top women's heel right now. She plays that part to a T, and I know that a lot of people for some reason get really down on her on social media about her wrestling ability and things like that. I think she's very good in the ring. I'm not going to say she's the best wrestler in the world, but she's, she can hold her own. And for somebody of her size, I mean, obviously, you look at her and then you look at somebody like Nia Jax, or even, somebody like Ronda Rousey. Alexa is definitely on the smaller side, but she can get in that ring and have a decent match with pretty much anybody and make it look believable. She uses the typical underhanded heel tactics for winning or for retaining her title when she's champion. And like I said, I think right now, as far as the women's division goes, she is the best heel that they have. So I'm really hoping that she is able to get back in the ring at some point. Another interesting note for some from a social media standpoint, it looks like Matt Hardy is kind of throwing his hat in the ring to be the next general manager of Raw, because obviously I don't think Baron Corbin is going to be the GM forever. I'll go on record and say more than likely I think he's going to lose to Braun Strowman at TLC and lose his spot as the interim GM. So I think the GM position would be great for Matt Hardy. I mean, creatively, he's got one of the best minds in the WWE right now, and I think if they didn't take advantage of that, it would be a huge mistake. So, yeah, I'm definitely on board for Matt Hardy possibly being your next Raw GM after Corbin is ousted, so to speak. On the SmackDown side, obviously one of the biggest stories the last couple weeks has been Daniel Bryan's heel turn. I wasn't a huge fan of Daniel Bryan the last time he played the role of the heel. But the way that he's going about it now, the personality that he is showing and things like that, I'm definitely liking it. I'm liking the direction that they're going with him. I love the fact that they put the title on him and the way that he won the title. It's just like he's sick of playing the good guy. He's sick of pandering to the fans. And, I think he, this rivalry with him and AJ can be carried out for quite a while. I'd be surprised if it didn't at least go until the Royal Rumble. I'd be very surprised. And then, to see who his WrestleMania opponent would be if they still have the championship on him at that point. There's just really no limit to what they can do. I mean, Daniel Bryan is one of the top guys in the company, both in the ring and on the mic. And, I'm a huge Daniel Bryan fan. I love what they're doing with him right now. I think when he first came back from the 3-year hiatus from the injuries, I think they started him off kind of slow, and I think that was by design. They wanted to make sure that he could still get in there and go every week, and he's shown that he can do that. I mean, he got in the ring with Brock Lesnar, got tossed around. That I think was the ultimate test to see if his body could handle being back in the ring, and as far as I could see, he passed it with flying colors. He had a great match with Brock Lesnar. He had a believable match with Brock Lesnar. He took some abuse and then managed to get the upper hand for a little while and made it a match. It wasn't your typical Brock Lesnar squash match. So, I really, really like the direction they're going with Daniel Bryan right now. On the NXT UK side, they crowned their first UK women's champion, and that was Rhea Ripley. She defeated Toni Storm in the final of the UK women's tournament. Then moving on to the NXT and the US side. Actually, I already talked about that. And, well, yeah, kind of related to NXT anyway. Lars Sullivan has been being advertised on both Raw and SmackDown to be making his debut sometime soon, and it looks like they're starting a pretty good build on him. Looks like they're going to try to make it look like there's kind of a bidding war between Raw and SmackDown, between Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon, or between the GMs, Paige and Corbin, or whoever the Raw GM might be after TLC. And by all accounts, Sullivan is going to be getting a huge push right out of the gate. So, hopefully, I mean, obviously he was a dominant monster heel in NXT for quite a while there. Never held the NXT Championship, had some championship matches against Aleister Black. And, just barely lost. And so, I mean, he could definitely be a huge force on either of the main roster shows. Personally, I'd like to see him go to Raw. That's where you tend to see your bigger monster type guys like Brock Lesnar, like the Author's Pain, and things like that. So I think you would fit in better with the Raw roster rather than the SmackDown roster. SmackDown, I think you tend to see some of your smaller guys like AJ Styles, like like Daniel Bryan and things like that. I would love to see Finn Balor moved over to SmackDown because I think he would thrive there much more than he has been on Monday Night Raw. Some other news with the WWE and their new TV deal with Fox. Apparently, from the reports coming out now, is that the brand split is going to stay in place. There was some speculation that they might do away with it so that they could have their top stars move back and forth between both shows. Because obviously you're going to want your biggest names on SmackDown when it's on a regular network station like Fox. But apparently Fox does not want to promote for USA Network, which is where Monday Night Raw is staying, so they want the brand split to remain in place. Now, this is something I can't imagine this is, like a surprise. It's just like coming out now. That this would be, a major part of any deal that's in place. So I would have to think, if this is the case, if the brand split's going to stay in place and they're going to, kind of pick and choose who they want to be on the Fox network, this is something that would have been part of the negotiations and worked into the contract. So I'm sure this is not something that has just kind of popped up in the last couple of weeks, like Fox saying, oh, by the way, I highly doubt that it works that way with a deal of this magnitude, so to speak. So, I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to, if you're Fox, you don't want to advertise for your competition. So, if that was a condition of the contract, I'm sure it's something that was done in the negotiations. And I mean, when it comes down to it, Vince McMahon is not a stupid businessman. He's not going to agree to something that he doesn't think will work or that he doesn't think will be best for his business. I mean, obviously you've got $1 billion deal with a major network. You're going to want that in place, but not at the expense of your company, not at the expense of compromising, your own business. So if this is the case, I'm sure it's something that was planned from the beginning. And yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see, the brand split stay. It wouldn't surprise me to see it go. It's just one of those things. Well, we got to wait and see when it gets closer. I'm sure that if the brand split is going to end, that's something that will be, a major announcement, and I'm sure it'll be made sometime closer to next October when SmackDown does move over to Fox. Another big TV announcement made by Access TV and New Japan Pro Wrestling is that Access is going to start covering New Japan events in real time. Now, that doesn't mean live. With the time difference, that would kind of be a little bit prohibitive as far as broadcasting events live in the U.S. from Japan. But what that basically means is, rather than the way New Japan is presented on Access now, it's usually a couple weeks after the event, 3-4 weeks later. Like this past week on Access, they were showing events from November 3rd events. So, it's about a month behind. But I guess starting with Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, it's going to be shown the same day. It's going to be shown in its entirety in real time. Meaning, there won't be any cuts in the matches, won't be any, I guess, editing. For lack of a better word, you'll see the full match. You'll see it, the same day or the same week that it happens. So, I think it's a great thing for any American New Japan fans who don't have the New Japan streaming service, and, who aren't able to catch things, live as they happen because of the time difference and things like that. So it's something I'm definitely going to be watching now that I finally have Access TV back and I can watch New Japan. Some news out of the UFC. There's a story going around that the Brock Lesnar Daniel Cormier fight possibly could be off, because apparently Dana White, and this is all rumors, internet writing, things like that. Apparently Dana White wants Cormier versus Jones to happen. So again, this is something that we'll have to see play out. I mean, I'm thinking Brock is going to be in WWE at least until WrestleMania, more than likely. By all accounts, he's got one match left on his WWE contract. I cannot see them using that before WrestleMania. Maybe at Royal Rumble, but then, I could see them trying to sign him to at least an extension for one more match to get, just to get him on the WrestleMania card. But I think sometime possibly within the next month, or maybe within the next 4 months, Brock Lesnar will be dropping the Universal Championship again. And then I'm pretty sure he's going to be back off to the UFC. And, I can't see him doing both. I can't see him being a WWE superstar and a UFC superstar, or UFC fighter, excuse me. But, stranger things have happened. But, with UFC, you figure if he's going to go back to fighting in the UFC, that's, maybe every 3 months or so, which is usually about how often he pops up in WWE. So, it's feasible he could do both. But I don't know if, especially if he's able to win the UFC championship, I can't see Dana White allowing his top champion to participate in pro wrestling. I just can't see it. Hey, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but as it stands right now, I don't see it happening. I don't, I wouldn't expect to see it. Some more interesting internet stuff going on is the back and forth between Becky Lynch and Conor McGregor. Conor basically saying, "Hey, ever need any backup? Just give me a call," and things like that. So, kind of planting seeds. I know there's been some interest from WWE in Conor McGregor. I think he'd fit right in. His level of trash talking and things like that, he would definitely fit in promo wise. Now, whether he'd be able to acclimate himself to the WWE style as far as wrestling goes, we'd have to wait and see on that. Ronda Rousey obviously took to the wrestling ring beautifully. It's been her promos that need some work, but that's something that can be taught and just gets better with time and practice, and the more comfortable she gets being in front of the fans like that. McGregor's already got the mic skills, so we'd have to see how his ring skills stack up. But I would definitely be curious to see what how that plays out. Moving on to some news from House of Hardcore. Of course, Tommy Dreamer's promotion. They had their Blizzard Brawl in Waukesha, Wisconsin last night. Willie Mack versus Sami Callihan for the Twitch TV title. Willie Mack is really turning out to be one of the top indie guys right now. Obviously he's always been a great wrestler, but he's the House of Hardcore TV champion. He's the NWA national champion. He is right up there at the top of the list as far as indie wrestlers right now. Also last night you had Tommy Dreamer versus Abyss and MVP versus Big Cass. They've got another show coming up on December the 8th at the old ECW Arena in Philadelphia. Got Bully Ray versus Joey Ryan, Tommy Dreamer versus PCO, who just signed a contract with Ring of Honor. Congrats to him. And you've got Willie Mack versus Shane Strickland and Nick Aldis versus Brian Cage. That is a match I would love to see. And then they've got a charity event December 15th in New Jersey. So a lot of stuff going on with House of Hardcore this coming month. For the NWA, they've announced Willie Mack's first national title defense against Samuel Shaw coming up on December the 9th. And as I just mentioned, PCO has signed with Ring of Honor, and so has Brody King. Both of them have signed with Ring of Honor. So it looks like Ring of Honor is trying to, get some new talent under contract because of some changes possibly coming later this month, which I'll get into in a little bit here. Ring of Honor does have their Final Battle pay-per-view coming up on December the 14th. And by all accounts, this will be the last event under contract, at least, for Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Page. Their Ring of Honor contracts expire at the end of December. Matches on that final battle card. We've got the Women of Honor World Championship. Sumi Sakai, Madison Rayne, Karen Q, and Kelly Klein. We've got Matt Taven versus Dalton Castle. Jay Lethal defending the Ring of Honor Championship against Cody Rhodes. Cody has already stated this will be his last Ring of Honor match, and he plans on taking the Ring of Honor title to the Indies with him. Can't really see that happening. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see, Ring of Honor put the title on a guy who's not under contract. It wouldn't, it's been done before, obviously. But, so if that happens, it's obviously something that is, planned ahead of time. Like, yeah, we're going to put the title on you. I would think as long as he doesn't take it to the WWE, there wouldn't be a problem. So we'll have to see how this one plays out here. And let's see where are we going from here. The television title match, Jeff Cobb defending against Hangman Page. Jonathan Gresham versus Zack Sabre Jr. Bully Ray versus Flip Gordon in an I Quit match. Christopher Daniels versus Marty Scurll to determine the number one contender to the Ring of Honor World Championship. And in the final match on the card, which is a ladder war for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. We've got SoCal Uncensored versus the Briscoes versus the Young Bucks. So, the Elite, Cody, Page, Scurll, the Young Bucks are all over this pay-per-view. So it should be something to watch. Some XFL news. They have announced which cities are getting XFL teams. So the 8 cities that will be participating in the XFL come 2020 are Seattle, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, St. Louis, New York, Washington, D.C., and Tampa, Florida. None of the names of these teams have been announced as of yet. No Chicago team this time, unfortunately for me. I was hoping we'd have one, but, I guess that means I'll have to pick somebody else to root for. It's definitely not going to be St. Louis, I'll tell you that much. But, so yeah, I'll be curious to see how it plays out, because the first time around the XFL did not do very well. I mean, I watched it. I thought it was okay for what it was. I mean, obviously it's not NFL level. It's somewhere between college football and the NFL, and so I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm definitely going to check it out once it does start up there in 2020. Another interesting note with NXT, it was announced that they are moving their NXT TakeOver for WrestleMania weekend from Saturday night to Friday night. Now, of course, that Saturday night is the co-promoted show at Madison Square Garden with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is already sold out. And I would think that tickets for the NXT TakeOver, I don't know if they've gone on sale yet or not, but I'm it begs the question, did they move it so that they're not having to compete with that MSG show? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Ring of Honor and New Japan are a competition for WWE, and they're not. They don't have the presence on U.S. television. They don't have the money of a WWE. Well, New Japan might, but they don't have the U.S. presence. They don't have the sponsors that WWE does and things like that. So, I mean, on those levels, no, they're not competition. But, when you have 2 live shows in the same city at comparable sized venues, that there is a little bit of competition there. I mean, MSG sold out in one day. And so the NXT, I think, tickets either haven't gone on sale yet, or they just recently went on sale with the WrestleMania travel packages. But, yeah, I have to think that had to be consideration in moving the show, because, that had to be a thought. Are we going to be able to sell the amount of tickets that we want to sell with this Ring of Honor New Japan show going on right across town? So I think, moving it to Friday rather than Saturday was definitely a strategic move by WWE, so that they didn't have the major competition like that. Obviously, there's going to be indie shows going on that whole weekend, but none of them on the scale of an NXT or even the Madison Square Garden show. So I think it's definitely a smart move by the WWE. They'll never admit that the MSG show had anything to do with the decision, but I think that you kind of have to believe that, just given the situation that MSG is already sold out, and well, those are, those people already have their tickets. That's 20,000 people that aren't going to be able to buy tickets to NXT. So let's move it to Friday, and then maybe some of these people will go to both, which I'm sure a lot of them will. So, I think it puts them in a good position to potentially sell out their own show at the Barclays Center that Friday night. So I would assume that means they're moving the Hall of Fame to Saturday night, because that, I believe was originally scheduled for that Friday. So I would assume they're just flip-flopping the Hall of Fame and NXT for those 2 nights. I mean, they're in the same place in the Barclays Center, so I'm guessing they just swap those two. So the biggest story that's been going around in wrestling the last couple of weeks, though, is with something called All Elite Wrestling, with some trademark filings, and the business address listed on those trademark filings is the Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium, which is owned by the Khan family, who has been rumored to be the financial backers for this new wrestling promotion headed up by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, as well as Jim Ross's name has been thrown out there multiple times, and so is Chris Jericho's. Nobody has issued a flat-out denial on this. They've just kind of deflected it. Nobody has stepped up and said, no, I'm absolutely not involved with this whatsoever, except for Access TV, who is rumored to be in talks for a TV deal with this new company. But the trademarks that were filed were for the name All Elite Wrestling, which, with the word elite in there, your mind is automatically going to go to Cody and the Bucks. They've also had trademarks filed on the abbreviation AEW, on the names Double or Nothing and All Out, which of course, both to me sound like potential names for a sequel to All In. Also the name Tuesday Night Dynamite, which I would assume would be for a weekly television show on Access or whatever television station they're negotiating with. And, it's something that JR said on his podcast this past week, and he said, before, if you're going to start up a new wrestling company, you need 2 things. You need talent and you need television. So, I mean, talent-wise, I don't think these guys would have any trouble signing some big names if they're available. I think the biggest thing is television. Now, by all accounts, there is ongoing negotiations with Access TV. Access has denied anything about it, but I mean, they wouldn't be able to talk about ongoing negotiations anyway. They wouldn't make any comment until there is an actual deal or contract in place. So, and maybe Access isn't the network that they're speaking to. Maybe it's a different network. Who knows? But with money from the Khan family backing this up, Cody and the Bucks and Hangman Page kind of hinting that their contracts are up at the end of the year. We're not re-signing. Kind of going to go off on their own. Same thing with Kenny Omega. I know his contract with New Japan supposedly is up in January. The only one's kind of up in the air is Marty Scurll. Nobody seems to know when his contract is up. Jim Ross has stated several times that his contract with WWE is up in March. His contract with Access TV is up this month. He's already recorded his last episodes in New Japan. So, all these guys are free agents. Same thing with Chris Jericho. He's not under contract to anybody right now either. So, I mean, the story is definitely plausible. I would love to see this come to fruition. I think with the talent that's already there, just with the elite guys, and supposedly Jim Ross, or maybe it was maybe it's somebody else. I mean, I'm sure, Cody and the Bucks and all that, they've got friends in WWE. But supposedly somebody has been putting out feelers with WWE stars and New Japan stars to gauge interest in who might, whose contracts are coming up and who might want to come on board with this new company. Supposedly WWE, there's stories saying WWE is trying to lock down talent with contract extensions so that they don't lose talent to this new company. There's other stories out there saying that it's not even on their radar. They're not even paying too much attention to it, which I can't believe that it's not on their radar, especially with the success of All In, especially with the financial backing that they supposedly have. I'm sure somebody in WWE is keeping an eye on the situation just to see where it goes. Another interesting note: CM Punk mentioned in an interview that he would be he would listen to an offer quote unquote from this new company, from All Elite Wrestling. So that I know got a lot of people's ears perked up when they read that CM Punk could potentially be back in the pro wrestling business within the next couple of years. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a wrestler. I mean, when it comes to pro wrestling, Punk can do pretty much anything. He could be an authority figure. He could be a commentator, which he did for WWE for a while during an injury. He did a fantastic job at. Or he could be back in the ring. Who knows? I mean, sky's the limit as far as CM Punk goes. If he gets back into wrestling in any capacity, he's going to excel. That's just the way it is. So, yeah, definitely the next year or so in pro wrestling is going to be very interesting, because by all accounts, this All Elite Wrestling wouldn't start up until 2020, which, sounds like a reasonable time frame to kind of get your talent signed, get your TV deal in place, get things promoted, possibly, maybe the first event under this AEW banner would be, a sequel to All In, whether it's called Double or Nothing or All Out or whatever it may be. This has a lot of people excited, myself included, but as I'm going to quote Dave Meltzer again from something he said on JR's podcast this week, and, at this point, it's just talk. I mean, it's serious talk. They've filed for trademarks on things like this, so they're, serious about wanting to do it. But until an announcement is made, an official announcement, that's all it is talk and rumors and things like that. Obviously, the Khan family is interested in doing this. They're the ones that have filed the, can't say it specifically by name, they're the ones that filed the trademarks, but whoever filed these trademarks did it from their business address at Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium. So, if we do see a sequel to All In this coming year, wouldn't surprise me to see it possibly in Jacksonville or somewhere in Florida, which, I was hoping to see it in Chicago again. Maybe they will, but, if that's going to be kind of their base of operations in Jacksonville, Florida, I'd expect to see their first major event in Jacksonville or somewhere in probably northern Florida. I don't think they'd go for Miami or something like that. If their home base is going to be in Jacksonville, I expect it to be somewhere in close proximity. So, that's pretty much it. That's everything that's been going on these last couple weeks. Again, I want to say thanks to everybody who's been checking out the show. I really hope everybody gets a chance to check out last week's show, especially with the Smack Talk Showdown game with me and my three buddies. It was, like I said, it was a blast to record. We had a lot of fun. I hope everybody who has watched it enjoyed it. I hope you will, share it with your friends, family, anybody who's a wrestling fan. I'm really, really trying to get build this show up and grow it into, as big as I can, honestly. And I can't do that without your help. I mean, word of mouth is the best advertising you can get. Love the show, hate the show. Hey, let me know, what can I do better? What can I do different? Leave me, questions, comments, anything. Like I said, I'm working on getting a couple of really, really big episodes put together for the next couple of months. Hopefully, I'll be able to make an official announcement here. I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks for at least one of those shows. But again, thank you to everybody who's been checking the show out on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, and Twitch, and pretty much anywhere you find your podcast. The only place I haven't been able to see the podcast is on Stitcher. I don't know why, but other than that, pretty much anywhere you find your podcast, you'll be able to search Catch, Hook, and Shoot, and show should pop right up. And again, please follow on social media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, on all of those. It's Catch, Hook, Shoot, and you'll be able to find it. Search Catch, Hook, Shoot, all one word. You'll be able to find it. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to hear me talk about, any criticism, I can take it. Anything at all you'd like to say, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. And so I think that will pretty much wrap the show up for this week. Hope everybody has been having a good holiday season so far. And thank you again for listening and watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.